There is a moment in every life when the weight we carry is not our own. It settles on our shoulders like a curse, pressing against bone and spirit until we forget what it felt like to walk freely. This is not the heroic burden of myth, not the noble act of sacrifice sung in old stories. This is something different, darker, crueler, when the strong, whether through arrogance or neglect, place their unfinished wars, their unspoken fears, their venom, their sins, onto the weak. And the weak, too fragile to resist, yet too human to refuse, bend under that weight until they break. You see, society has always been built on this exchange. Kings send children to die in wars they will never fight. Parents hand down unhealed wounds to their offspring like heirlooms polished in silence. Friends demand loyalty that crushes the spirit. Lovers demand forgiveness they never earned. And communities choose scapegoats to carry collective shame. We pretend this is balance, we pretend this is order, but it is only oppression dressed in civility. Stephen King once wrote that monsters are real, and ghosts are too. They live inside us, and sometimes they win in the stand. The monsters were not only the walking plague or Randall Flagg's devilish grin, they were also the invisible burdens, the demands, the collective guilt that ordinary people dumped on those least equipped to bear it. The world was ending, and instead of unity, what emerged was the same old hunger, the instinct to survive by placing your sins in someone else's hands. The plague may have killed bodies, but it was this cruelty that poisoned souls. The weak often learn young that they exist not for themselves, but as mirrors, as sponges, as shields. They are told they are too quiet, too sensitive, too easily broken, and yet these are the very ones to whom the world runs when the storm comes. The strong, so proud in their posturing, suddenly find their knees shaking, and so they turn to the meek, the quiet, the ones who have carried their own pain in silence for so long that one more stone, one more corpse, one more secret seems like nothing, until it isn't, until their spirit splits like old wood, and no one notices. Because weakness breaking has never made the evening news. There is a cruelty in this transfer, not because it is deliberate, but because it is so casual. In the stand, survivors clung to those who seemed stable, who offered compassion, who listened without judgment. And yet, these listeners, these healers, were asked to hold far more than their share. They were never the generals, never the kings, but they became the mules of the apocalypse, bent double beneath the weight of grief that was not their own. Isn't that what we do, even now? In the quiet apocalypse of ordinary life, we dump our shame, our mistakes, our guilt onto the weak, because they will not fight back. They will nod, they will forgive, they will absorb, and we, the so-called strong, walk away lighter, never realizing that each unspoken confession buries them alive. But here is the darkest truth. Sometimes the weak carry these burdens not because they want to, but because they believe it is the only way to be loved. They become the saints of suffering, the martyrs of silence. They think, if I hold this pain, if I absorb their cruelty, maybe I will belong, maybe I will matter. But belonging bought with your own disintegration is no belonging at all. It is slavery dressed as loyalty. And how many of us are slaves, bound not with chains of iron, but with chains of guilt and fear, smiling as we drag the sins of others like coffins behind us? Think about the times in your own life when you bent under someone else's mistakes. Perhaps it was a family member whose addiction ate through your nights. Perhaps it was a lover whose cruelty you explained away as wounds you must heal. Perhaps it was a friend who saw you as their confessional, a vessel for secrets too dark to speak aloud. Each time, you told yourself you were strong for enduring. But endurance without release is not strength, it is corrosion. It eats at the soul like rust eats through iron, silently, invisibly, until one day the structure collapses and everyone acts surprised, as though they hadn't been the ones piling bricks onto your back. The burden of the strong is not always violence. Sometimes it is indifference, neglect, cowardice, the father who abandons his family, forcing the eldest child to become a parent before her time, the leader who refuses responsibility, leaving others to clean up the blood he spilled with his silence. The society that praises resilience but creates no safety net, demanding its weakest members rise above circumstances designed to crush them. And we clap for these survivors, these heroes who carry impossible loads. But in truth, we are applauding our own cruelty. For what is heroism if not the glorification of suffering? And what is survival if not a curse disguised as triumph? The weak who carry the burdens of the strong often become two people at once. The outer mask that smiles, forgives, endures, and the inner voice that screams, claws, begs for release. This split is a kind of possession, a haunting, not by ghosts, but by the weight of unmet justice. And sometimes that haunting turns dark. Sometimes the weak, pushed too far, transform their silence into rage in King's stories. It is always the quiet ones who surprise us, the overlooked child, the ridiculed outcast, the gentle soul, when they finally erupt. Their vengeance is biblical. And yet, do we blame them? Or do we blame ourselves for never noticing the burden we strap to their backs? I ask you, listener, how many burdens have you placed on someone else, knowingly or unknowingly? How many sins have you whispered into another's ear, relieved when they said nothing, never realizing that silence was the sound of breaking? And more painfully, how many burdens have you accepted, smiling, nodding, convincing yourself it was love when it was only exploitation? This is what happens when the weak carry the burden of the strong. They disappear, first quietly, then violently. And when they vanish, when they collapse, when they lash out, society calls it madness, tragedy, evil. But it is not madness, it is mathematics. You cannot keep piling weights on fragile bones without expecting them to shatter. You cannot keep feeding the meek poison and then act surprised when they choke. And so the question lingers, sharp as a knife in the dark. When the burden comes to you, will you pass it to the weak, or will you carry it yourself? And yet, the tragedy is not always in the breaking. It is in the silence that comes before. Imagine a room where voices overlap in accusation, anger, denial, everyone pointing fingers, everyone desperate to escape blame. In the corner, someone sits quietly, nodding, listening, absorbing it all. They will not interrupt. They will not shout back. They will not defend themselves. And the room breathes easier because of it. The chaos feels ordered again, the guilt distributed, the shame shared. But what no one notices is that this quiet one has swallowed not only the noise, but the venom. They walk out of the room heavier, carrying wounds that were not theirs, and everyone else feels lighter without ever saying thank you. This is not kindness, it is theft. The weak are robbed not of possessions, but of space to exist freely, unburdened, in the stand. This was painted across the ruin of a dying world. Survivors sought leaders, prophets, figures to follow. But even there, in the ashes of humanity, the instinct remained. Unload the weight onto someone else. Mother Abigail, frail, old, her back already bent by years of devotion, was made to carry not only faith, but also fear. They placed on her shoulders the sins of an entire community, expecting her to stand as both mother and savior. But salvation is a cruel demand when it is extracted, not offered. She stumbled beneath it, not because she lacked faith, but because she was human. Even saints crack beneath the weight of stolen burdens. This is not just a story of a fictional plague or some distant collapse. It is a mirror. Think of the elders in your family who were forced to absorb pain they never spoke of, whose silence became the foundation of your household. Think of the child in every classroom who becomes the emotional punching bag of bullies, carrying shame that belongs to others. Think of the friend who never shares their own struggles because they are too busy holding everyone else's secrets. These are not isolated tales. They are the architecture of society itself, and the bricks are made of stolen strength. When the weak carry the burdens of the strong, morality becomes distorted. We tell ourselves it is noble, that compassion requires sacrifice, that endurance is a virtue. But is it virtue when it destroys the vessel that holds it? Is it compassion when it demands the erasure of self? There is a reason why people snap, why kindness curdles into bitterness, why gentleness becomes rage. It is not sudden, it is cumulative. Each demand, each expectation, each manipulation adds weight until the balance tips. And when it tips, society looks on with horror, pretending not to understand how a lamb became a wolf. But the transformation was written in every silent nod, every unspoken cry for help, every burden accepted without question. You can see it in the eyes of those who have carried too much for too long. They smile, but the smile does not reach the eyes. They nod, but the nod is hollow. They say, "It's fine." But what they mean is, "I am vanishing." And perhaps you recognize yourself in those eyes. Perhaps you know the taste of a burden that never belonged to you. Perhaps you have been praised for your resilience, when what you needed was release. That is the cruelest trick of all. Society praises the weak for carrying what others could not, then abandons them when they collapse. We build monuments to martyrs, but we never give them rest while they live. In the stand, the characters had to choose who would lead, who would follow, who would carry the sins of the world. And in those choices, King revealed the deepest flaw in human nature, the hunger to escape accountability. Evil does not always come in the form of violence or plague. Sometimes it comes in the form of responsibility avoided, pain outsourced, humanity abandoned in favor of self-preservation. Evil is not always a shadowy man with glowing eyes. Sometimes it is the simple shrug of a strong man as he walks away, leaving a weaker one to pick up the pieces. We live in a culture that tells us to admire those who carry burdens, but we rarely ask why they had to carry them in the first place. We call it destiny, faith, God's plan, resilience. But strip away the words, and you find exploitation. Strip away the praise, and you find neglect. Strip away the illusion of strength, and you find bones cracking under a weight that should have been shared, or better yet, never inflicted. And here is where the horror deepens. Because when the weak carry too much, when they are broken by the burdens of the strong, they do not fall alone. Their collapse creates a vacuum, and into that vacuum pours chaos in King's story. The collapse of the weak opened the door for the dark man, Randall Flagg, to gather followers. He preyed on weakness, not because weakness was evil, but because weakness had been exploited until it became desperate. Broken people, ignored in their suffering, will follow anyone who promises to carry their burdens for them, even if that leader is the devil himself. So ask yourself, how many devils have been born from our refusal to carry our own weight? How much darkness have we unleashed by piling our fears and failures onto the backs of those too gentle to resist? The burden of the strong, when abandoned, does not simply disappear, it transforms, mutates, festers in the souls of the weak until it erupts, often in ways that scorch everyone. And if you look closely, you may realize that the line between weak and strong is not fixed. Today, you may be the one handing off your guilt. Tomorrow, you may be the one crushed by someone else's. We are all walking that line, all complicit, all vulnerable. The question is not whether the weak can carry the burdens of the strong. They can. They always have. The real question is, how long before the weight turns compassion into resentment, and resentment into ruin? And so we come to the most unsettling truth of all. When the weak carry the burden of the strong, they are not just crushed, they are transformed. That transformation is rarely the one the world expects. It is not saintly transcendence, not quiet martyrdom preserved in holy light. No, it is darker, more primal. A metamorphosis born of pressure. Weakness, when abused, can become a weapon sharper than any forged by strength. Think of the soft-hearted caretaker who sacrifices everything for others, only to be left hollow and unnoticed. At first, they smile through the exhaustion, believing that love and recognition will eventually find them. But when love never arrives, when the recognition never comes, something begins to twist. Kindness curdles, devotion sours. Their smile becomes brittle, their silence grows venomous, and one day the weight they carried spills over in a torrent no one can contain. This is how monsters are made, not born, but made by a society that mistakes endurance for consent. In the stand, burden, and choice were entangled in every moment. Those who resisted responsibility, who pushed their sins onto others, found themselves drawn to Flagg's side, where cruelty was rewarded and blame was dissolved into collective darkness. Those who took responsibility, even when they were terrified, walked toward Mother Abigail, toward faith and redemption. But notice, both sides demanded sacrifice. Both sides placed their burdens on chosen figures. In the middle, ordinary people carried impossible loads, never acknowledged, never thanked, only used. And when some of them broke, they were called weak. Yet who was weaker? The one who collapsed under the weight, or the one who placed it there and walked away unscathed? The psychology of making a mistake lives here, in this cruel exchange. The mistake of the strong is not merely in abandoning their burdens, but in convincing themselves that the weak are built to endure them. They mistake silence for resilience, obedience for choice, forgiveness for infinite capacity. And the mistake of the weak is in believing that their worth is tied to carrying what was never theirs to hold. These two mistakes lock together like rusted gears, grinding until sparks fly. until something breaks irreparably. And here lies the tragedy. Both sides pay. The strong pay in blindness, in ignorance of their own decay. For every burden they unload, they lose a piece of their humanity, a piece of their conscience. The weak pay in flesh and spirit, their lives shortened by the crushing of invisible weights. Together, they create a cycle of exploitation so seamless it feels natural, inevitable. But it is not inevitable. It is a choice, and choices can be unmade, though rarely without cost. Consider this. If you have ever laughed at someone's collapse, called them too sensitive, mocked them for breaking down, you have added weight to their back. If you have ever demanded forgiveness without earning it, you have placed your sins into another's fragile hands. If you have ever confided in someone not to heal, but to dump, not to connect, but to relieve yourself, you have used them as a vessel. And if you have ever carried in silence, nodding while your bones cracked beneath the strain, you have fed the lie that exploitation is kindness. This is not condemnation, it is revelation. For only by naming the weight can we decide whether to keep carrying it or to set it down. The stand was, at its core, about that very decision. In the ruins of civilization, stripped of comfort and excuses, who would carry what? Who would take responsibility? And who would flee from it? Who would step into the role of savior? And who would shrink into shadow? Every choice revealed not just survival, but morality itself. And so, let us turn the mirror back on ourselves. We are not in a world-ending plague, not yet. But our small apocalypses are no less devastating. Families implode under unspoken burdens. Friendships rot beneath the weight of one-sided sacrifice. Communities collapse because the strong refuse to carry what is theirs. And in those moments, the weak are praised when they endure, forgotten when they collapse, demonized when they retaliate. We build a world on their backs and then wonder why the ground cracks beneath us. This is what happens when the weak carry the burden of the strong. The world staggers, love distorts, morality corrodes, and when the final breaking point comes, it is never quiet. It is always catastrophic, whether in the fire of vengeance, the abyss of despair, or the hollow silence of disappearance. The collapse of the weak shakes everyone, and yet we act surprised, as if we did not know, as if we had not seen it coming in every quiet nod, every weary smile, every "I'm fine" that was never true. So I ask you now, not as an accusation, but as an invitation. What burdens are you carrying that do not belong to you? Whose sins have you swallowed in silence? And what has it cost you? And perhaps more uncomfortably, whose back have you bent with your own mistakes? Whose silence have you mistaken for strength? The weak can carry the burdens of the strong. Yes, they always have. But the real question is, should they? And if they stop, if they finally set those burdens down, what will become of those who never learned to carry their own weight? The terrifying answer is that when the weak finally stop carrying, when their shoulders shrug off the weight that never should have been theirs, the world trembles, not because they are violent by nature, but because the collapse of what society has leaned on reveals how hollow the structure truly is. It is like pulling a single card from the base of a house of cards. Everything above it comes crashing down. The strong, who believed themselves invincible, suddenly find themselves exposed. Their power was not built on their own strength, but on the exploitation of others. Without the weak holding them up, they stumble, And sometimes, they fall harder than the ones they oppressed in the stand, when the fragile balance tipped, when trust was broken, when burdens became unbearable, entire camps dissolved, loyalty shifted overnight. Those who had been silent too long either vanished into despair or rose in a storm of rage. That is how Flag gathered his followers, not through promises of glory alone, but by offering relief. He whispered, "You don't have to carry anymore. I will carry it for you." But his bargain was poisoned. He took their burdens, yes. But in exchange, he took their freedom, their morality, their very souls. And here lies the paradox. When the weak finally refuse to carry, they are most vulnerable to devils who promise liberation without responsibility. This is where criminal psychology reveals its cruelest edges. The making of a mistake, whether by the weak or the strong, often begins with desperation. The strong offload because they fear accountability. The weak accept because they fear abandonment. Both mistakes are born of terror, and terror has no patience for reason. A mother terrified of losing her children carries the sins of an abusive partner. A son terrified of losing his father carries the family's shame. A community terrified of chaos places faith in a leader who demands too much. Each decision feels small, rational, survivable. But they are not small. They accumulate, layer upon layer, until survival itself becomes indistinguishable from surrender. And here is the emotional struggle that eats us alive. We mistake survival for life. We tell ourselves, as long as I endure, I am strong. But endurance is not always strength. It is sometimes complicity. To carry another's burden without consent, without balance, is to live a life that is not your own. It is to exist as a shadow, a mule, a receptacle for pain, and eventually, something inside rebels. The rebellion may come as illness, as depression, as a sudden act of violence, as the quiet closing of a door that will never reopen. But it comes, always. This is why King's stories cut so deeply. They are not about monsters outside of us, but about the rot that grows inside when burdens are mislaid. His characters do not simply face evil, they carry it, conceal it, deny it, until it transforms them. That is the horror of The Stand. Not only that civilization fell, but that, even in the ashes, human beings repeated the same cycle of exploitation and avoidance. Even with death at their heels, they sought someone weaker to carry their fear. And isn't that what we do, even in our modern lives? With all our technology, all our progress, we still turn to scapegoats, to victims, to those who cannot say no. We still hand off the burdens we cannot bear. The poor carry the weight of the rich. The children carry the weight of their parents. The marginalized carry the weight of society's sins. And when they crack, when they fail, we say, "See, they were too weak after all." But no one is too weak until someone stronger has forced their weight onto them. The emotional analysis here is brutal. Strength without responsibility is not strength at all. It is cowardice, dressed in the costume of power. Weakness, when it carries too much, is not weakness at all. It is a distorted form of strength, one that destroys the bearer. And in that distortion lies both tragedy and warning. Because if you listen closely, beneath the silence of those who carry, you will hear the ticking of a bomb. Each secret swallowed, each humiliation endured, each injustice absorbed without protest adds another second to the countdown. And when it explodes, no one is spared. Not the weak who carried, not the strong who escaped, not the society that allowed it. The explosion may come as the collapse of an individual life, or as the collapse of an entire order. Either way, the cost is catastrophic, and so we are left with a question. The same question that echoed through the stand and still echoes through our lives now. When your turn comes, and it always does, will you carry your own weight? Or will you place it on someone else's back and call them noble for taking it? And if you are the one already carrying, already bending, already cracking, will you continue? Or will you set it down and let the strong finally face themselves? This is what happens when the weak carry the burden of the strong. Humanity is tested, morality is exposed, and every mask of strength is torn away. And the only thing left, the only thing that remains, is the question that will haunt you long after these words fade. When the weight comes for you, will you carry it, or will you make someone else bleed for your survival?